Good morning and welcome to this posture profile. I'm John Vitarelli and it's from uh, teaching yoga. This is like, it's not part of uh, the Ashtanga sequence necessarily, but I do love this posture. Of course, it shows up in Iyengar's Light on Yoga. As with any balanced posture, the great thing about balanced postures is that it requires focus. Right? I think it's probably the most important thing. Other aspects of balance that are important are the most immediate thing is strength in your legs. Um, some practitioners will complain of, kind of equilibrium issues and kind of wanting to kind of have better equilibrium, a better kind of like internal balance. But in actuality, maybe it's like their foot or their ankle or their lower leg that needs to grow stronger. Kind of a deeper kind of mental connection with the hip and how the hip joint is actually operating in space. So that's another thing that needs to be considered as well. All right, so when we look at the pose, let's first take a look at the posture, right? We have my left foot here, so facing you. We have the opportunity to potentially use a block, right? It's always a good thing. You could even use something like a chair for the posture as well. Ideally, I want to draw a line, right? If I'm using a block, right, or if my hand is on the ground, I want to be able to draw a line from my hand or block from my second toe, right, kind of through my second toe, if you will, through the center of my heel. What oftentimes happens is that we offset things. Hopefully, you can kind of get that perspective a bit. All right. Matter of fact, let's move it in a little bit closer and see. Yeah, I think you'll be able to see it. Drop it down just a bit. Hopefully this won't cut the head off. I'm standing upright. That's pretty good. So what happens is that when we work to achieve the balance, so often is that we offset the block or the hand so that it's not lined up, right? We're trying to, again, drawing a line from the center of the heel through the second toe. This is where my hand should be, but oftentimes we set it back. We're able to better balance this way. We're kind of making more of like a tripod position between, it's just 2 points, the heel, the toe, and the hand. Right? Again, it's just 2 points. So to make the posture more challenging, we want that block or hand right there out in front of the foot. It's like, it becomes more of a tightrope. Okay, see, look, I'm now struggling with balance. Ideally, I keep this right hip moving up away from the inner left ankle. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Right, this right arm, of course, is reaching up, pushing deeply through that right heel. A lot of times the right leg will want to swing forward, especially if you have tighter hip flexors. But if you're on the looser side of things, there's a tendency to kind of move into a deeper back bend, pushing the hips forward, and the foot starts to travel back so that we kind of move out of that nice even plane. We can always learn, really nice and challenging alignment by kind of situating ourselves up against the wall, right? And that is placing the foot about 2 inches away from the wall, the hand about 2 inches away from the wall. And then when you get up against the wall, it may have to be like 4 or 6 inches. Kind of depends on your butt. Essentially, I got when you get yourself up against the wall, now it's all about balancing, lifting up, and balancing yourself up away from the wall. Right? It's not about kind of pushing yourself off the wall to get your balance. It's about lifting up. I talk about the same concept in like handstands and stuff. Looking at this right side, though, again, ideally, my right hand is in front of my right foot. Again, I can draw line. I'm tenting up my fingers, by the way. Right, palm flat is always fun and challenging. Let's also consider for a moment the amount of space between the wrist and the ankle. Ideally, it's going to be the length of your spine, right? And that is basically from the coccyx, right? The lower spine. You can say the sacrum, really. And all the way up to the lower cervical spine, right? So that's the length, right? And this is the length essentially from the shoulder to the hip. right? So that's our length, right? That's our measurement, right? Our own measurement. We can say, let's take it out, 18 inches or 14 inches, something like that. But really the length, the alignment you want in your posture is going to be from the lower cervical spine, roughly where it's going to line up with the shoulder, right? And then all the way down to right the sacrum, right, roughly where the hips going to land. So that's our length. So I'm going to say I'm about here, okay? And when I lift up, again, this is the measurements from wrist to ankle, right? I'm working palm flat, which can be very challenging. Again, the hand is out in front of that foot. Right, from here, I'm pushing through that heel. As I mentioned, those of you who have a tendency to back bend more easily, the leg will oftentimes start to drift back behind the body. The hips will move forward. And again, we move out of that flat plane that we're seeking. Right, from here, I try to turn the head upwards. All right. Okay, so now something that I really enjoy in this posture is actually not even having the hand touch anything. This could be really, really challenging. So if I'm working on my left side here, I'm working to tip into the pose, and I'll look at, one way in which we might float into this posture, right? Which requires more balance along the way. I'm going to pause somewhere in space where my hand doesn't touch block or floor. Okay, so here, as I kind of move into the balance posture, again, I'm looking for that alignment from hand, second toe to heel, right? I'm not letting my hand touch, and I'm reaching that right arm upwards, okay? Again, this right hip point moves away from the left, inner left ankle, all right? I love trying to lift the heel, a cue I often give in class. All right, from that right side. And again, I'm kind of like floating into the posture. I can see the angle of my foot, so I want my hand, again, drawing that line, heel, second toe out to the hand. Right, that left leg hoisting up, getting it roughly parallel to the floor, maybe a little bit higher. Again, this time left hip point moving away from right inner ankle. And maybe I try to lift that right heel up. It's a good way to kind of lift out of that right hip. Very nice. Good stuff. All right. So those balance postures, right? Again, it requires a lot of focus. The more challenging you make that balance posture, the deeper your focus has to go. So let's look at Warrior 2 for a moment, as I mentioned. All right, so Warrior 2, triangle, extended side angle, the postures that are most kind of related to half moon pose. One thing about Warrior 2 that I like a whole bunch is this movement of front knee and back hip traveling away from one another. Same concept I was just talking about, right? So we want these two parts to be moving away from one another. Very subtle. Every little while, we keep scrubbing inwards with those feet. Okay? In this case, my left knee, inner knee, moving away from the right hip. Same thing, except I use the ankle as the cue. All right? So the ankle and the hip moving away from one another. We can look at it in terms of triangle pose as well, since the leg is straighter. And this will kind of like help us open things out to the side. Very similar. Okay, so as I mentioned, right, when we're practicing, there's a number of ways in which we might be able to get into this pose. A common way, of course, is moving from half, and simply lift the back leg up, then arm up, then the gaze might shift upwards. Clearly, I need to work on my gaze. All right, so that's one way we might be able to get into it. Of course, if you're using something like a table chair, maybe even a block, right, the hand set, then we lift that back leg up. I love moving from reverse warrior, right? Here I got my left knee forward, right arm back. I'm inhaling that left arm up. And with lots of control, I tumble my way into the balance. As I mentioned, I don't like my hand to touch. I encourage you to do the same. All right, from here, you achieve balance or something like it. Okay, all right. So that's Half Moon. I hope you enjoyed it. Have fun with it. And of course, it's part of my sequence that I'm currently teaching. Join me, of course, on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. on Zoom or, here on YouTube. All right, hit that subscribe button. Thanks. Peace.